So I'll be talking about the how big data with artificial intelligence and machine learning would be useful in managing the environment prudently. We all talk about sustainable development. That essentially means sustaining the water and the other natural resources so that the next generation continue to have the same benefit what we have. Incidentally, today is the World Lions Day. You know, if you want to know about lions and lions how they survive, you need to have the ecosystem in plan. If you manage the ecosystem, then you will have the lions. So my talk has a relevance in that regard to show how we can conserve the ecosystem so that we have this kind of endangered taxa like lions, tigers, etc. So, when we talk about managing the resources, essentially we are keen on sustaining the resources. If you ensure the clean air and water and environment to our next generation and ensure the sustenance of resources, you have achieved the goal of sustainable future. For that to happen, you need to have a proper decision. When you take the proper decision, then you will be managing the resources appropriately. That decision can be done by the sensible citizen. Essentially, you need to maintain the ecosystem integrity. You need to understand what is an ecosystem and how to manage the ecosystem. That is where understanding ecosystem integrity is a requirement. And that is where remote sensing data would be useful. When you maintain the ecosystem integrity, you have the ecological security. So, which means that you will have water security, you will have water when you want it. Because of the water availability, you have the food security and also secured health and resource availability for everyone. Then ecosystem services sustain the livelihood of all the dependent organisms, biological organisms, and there will be happiness among everyone, not select few who are behind development syndrome. And it also, the ecosystem or a region is resilient to changes in the climate. So that's where, when you have to achieve this thing, you have to take an appropriate decision. That decision become appropriate only when you have the environmental knowledge. Okay? So now, as I said earlier, today is the World Lion Day. So we remember lions once a year. But throughout the year, you should manage their habitat to see that lions are there for our children. Okay? So now, what we have done, we can, first is to find out what is the extent of ecosystem. That is what the first does. That is where the big data will be useful. We use big data and we classify through the artificial intelligence or a machine learning algorithm. So, for example, we have, when you use this big data, you need to have some prior knowledge of the field. That is where we collect the training data. When you are collecting the training data, you need to choose your samples based on various criteria. One of the examples for our study we did was agroclimatic zone. Based on agroclimatic zone, we carried out a field work and collected a field data from 10 districts in the Karnataka. Okay. Then we also did the supplemented this training data with the other data from the other sources like government organization, etc. Now, for example, when you look at the big data, we launched the satellites way back in 70s. From 1970s, every 21 or 30 days interval, we get the picture of the Earth. We have such a huge data of last 5 decades available on the 20 days or 21 days or 30 days interval and in the various bands. You have bands of data for example, in the visible band, you have the blue, green, red, near infrared, this one. So these are used in optical remote sensing to identify the object, and also you can use the microwave remote sensing also, that is in the microwave region. But as far as my work is concerned, as of today's presentation, I will be talking about the optical data. When you look at this remotely sensed data, it is nothing but is a collection of numbers. Depending on the bits you have used for the sensors. If you have used the 7-bit sensors, your digital number ranges from 0 to 127. If you have used the 8-bit the sensor, your this one would have the data would have ranged from 0 to 2 to the power of 8, which means 0 to 255. So now to understand what is remote sensing, it's obtaining the information about the feature without being in contact with the object. For example, satellites have the camera, they go on capturing the picture of the earth without touching the earth. Okay, so now the associated data what we use, the survey failure topographic map, then we also go to the field using a pre-calibrated GPS, and also we are fortunate to have the virtual data portal like Google Earth or the one which are the highest spatial resolution data. From that you can derive some attribute information for the training data. Okay, then when you look at the artificial intelligence or the machine learning, you have the broadly two the classifiers. One is a supervised and the other one is unsupervised. Unsupervised is based on the clustering. It find out how many clusters are there in your data, and then based on that it will give the what is the kind of the likely categories. Whereas in the supervised classifier uses your training data, and these are some of the algorithm what is being used. Most commonly used the non-parametric supervised classifier is the random forest and support vector machines. So, and of course there are other algorithms also, deep learning operators, etc. So now coming to our today's presentation, we carried out a study in Karnataka. You will see that because of the availability of data, the entire Karnataka we could do it within a year. So now what did we do? There are already standard protocols for there how to find out the area, spatial extent of the ecosystem. Then also find out the condition of the ecosystem, whether the forests are fragmented or not, that kind of or soil quality you can assess. Then you find out what are the goods and services of the ecosystem, and then finally you can also visualize what is the likely changes happening and the consequence of that. Okay, so now when you take the spatial data, essentially you will acquire the data, you will do the pre-processing of the data, you will rectify if there are any errors, then you will do the classification of the data, then you will interpret the data. So this is to analyze the data what you have to the current data or the historical data. Now to visualize the tomorrow what is the likely scenario, you can use the models. There are the well-known models like cellular automata, CA with Markov, or the analytical hierarchical this one with the CA and Markov, or the multi-criteria evaluation. This is what we have used. These are the AHP with CA Markov we have used for visualizing what is the likely land uses or land cover in the region. Now this gives an example of Karnataka. See, we have analyzed the remote sensing data of 1985, 2005 and 2019. We use the remote sensing data of that period. We use the standard protocol to classify this to find out what are the land uses. These are the various land uses in the region. We have identified the forest, we have identified the other features like water, build-up, etc. We know the spatial extent, and when you have this temporal data from time t1 to t2, you can also see what changes are happening in the system. There is when you look at the changes that is happening in Karnataka, there is a 35% degradation in the forest. And this is the training data what we have collected to visualize to analyze the spatial extent of the various ecosystems in the region. Okay. Then we also try to understand the ecosystem conditions. See, broadly the United Nations has given the conditions into the three groups. One is abiotic, the second is biotic, and the third is a landscape level. In the abiotic, you can have the physical state characteristics or the chemical state characteristics. While the biotic, you will find out the species, then you find out what is the carbon, etc. Then at the landscape level, you will assess the fragmentation of the landscape and find out what is the land surface temperature, etc. Now, we have done that analysis for this gives the condition of the forest, how much the forest has fragmented. The contiguous forest getting into fragmented into the multiple patches is disastrous. That is what we have tried to analyze, how the intact forest has or the interior forest has changed over a period of time. If you look at the Karnataka, 16% which was the intact forest, today is about 5.9%. That means the forest, not only we are losing the forest, we are also degrading the forest quality. Now the consequence of this, the declining green cover in the region is the increase in the land surface temperature. That is again evident from when you use the thermal data. You can see the increasing temperature over a period of time from the thermal data what we have acquired. Okay. So then we also looked at the soil health. And we generated a composite the metric to find out what is the ecosystem condition, wherein we have used the abiotic, then the biotic feature, and also the landscape level. Then we have tried to look at the two time period, 2005 and 2019. You will see that how the composite index will reveal. See, the high quality ecosystem, which was 39.6%, today has come down to 25.8%. Now that means there is a degradation happening in the system. Okay, now the degradation also gets revealed in the ecosystem functions. You know, when you look at the ecosystem, the functions include the hydrological cycle, the nutrient cycle, or the biogeochemical cycle, etc. So now we try to quantify the services provided by an ecosystem. Broadly, we have three categories of the services. One is the provisioning services, the second is the regulating and cultural services. The provisioning services give the tangible benefit, wherein you will find out what are the goods you get from the forest ecosystem, and you find out what is the quantity of that, what is the market price of that, and also you will deduct the cost. See, this is cost of labor, harvesting labor, then transport, etc. So when you do that, this is the profit what you get, this is the revenue what you get, PI minus CI. When you multiply by the quantity, it gives the benefit from the ecosystem for the provisioning services. When you aggregate all these things, this gives the total for the provisioning services. Similarly, you will have for the regulating services, which include the soil fertility, pollination services, air filtration, etc. Then the cultural services, since my group has been working in Western Ghats for the last 2.5 decades, we have carried out this the study to find out what is the cultural value of the ecosystem. When you calculate all these things, when you integrate them, that is called a total ecosystem supply value, or it is also called the gross ecosystem product. See, you all are aware of GDP, that is a gross domestic product, which does not account the ecosystem services. Now we are trying to see that GDP is checked to the GEP, that is a gross ecosystem product, accounting the ecosystem services. Okay. So now ecosystem quantification we have done. Now if you look at it, this is how the spatial data help. You know, we have found out what is the quantity of the goods that we get from various forests in Karnataka over a period of time. And then we also calculated the provisioning, regulating, cultural services per hectare. Since we know the spatial extent of ecosystem, we could extrapolate it for the entire ecosystem. That's what we have done. This is the provisioning services, the regulating services, and cultural services. And the summation of these three gives the total ecosystem supply value. When you look at this carefully, you will see in 2005 versus the 2019 how the degradation has led to the loss of the ecosystem product. So now to put it in simpler word, the forest ecosystem in 2005 was giving the goods worth 2,841 billion rupees per year. In 2019, it has come down to 1,835 billion rupees, and of course, these 2005 prices are the 2019 price. We have used the 2019 the currency value to quantify. Then only you can compare these two the time period. Now, when you look at that, there is a loss of 2,841 billion rupees per year has come down to 1,835 billion rupees per year. This is directly proportional to the quantity of the forest what we have lost or the degraded in the ecosystem. Now, say for example, if you keep 1,000 rupees in a bank at 10% interest, you will get 100 rupees every year. Now, if you have to get 100 rupees, you have to keep the principal amount of 1,000 rupees in the bank. Similarly, if you are getting 1,835 billion rupees every year, what is the worth of the ecosystem? We have done the quantification of that for 2005 and 2019. That is called the NPV, net present value of the ecosystem. See, in 2005, the net present value of the forest ecosystem was 73,000 billion rupees, which has come down in 2019 to 47,000 billion rupees. This is the cost of the ecosystem degradation. Now, this degradation cost should have been accounted in our GDP when we talk about GDP, but unfortunately we have not done that. That's where we see the degradation of the forests and river courses are happening in the country. Now, of course, there is with this kind of study, there are a lot of awareness among the people to include these aspects in the GDP. Okay, we also have visualized what is the likely scenario of the thing. We have used various scenarios like business as usual, then agent-based scenario, then reserve forest protection, afforestation scenario, and also sustainable development scenario. Now, when you do that, of course, we have used the standard protocol of the analytical hierarchical process with the CA Marco. So then this is it's available in my publication, which is available online. You can go through that. I will not get into the details of that. But these are the constraints we use for the modeling, and these are the agents which drive the changes also we have considered. With that, we have projected what is the likely land uses in 2033, and we found that one of the scenarios, sustainable development scenario, is the appropriate, which says that when you are also doing the development, you should also have the protection of the forest, and you should also carry out the afforestation of the landscape, degraded landscape. Then only you can have the sustainable development in place. Okay. So now this gives the various scenarios, the spatial extent of the thing. Among this, STP seems to be the best thing. You will have a minimal loss of forest in the STP scenario. Then we also try to visualize what is the likely ecosystem services under this scenario. It turns out to be the STP scenario is the most appropriate. See, now you understood what is the role of spatial data and how it can be used in managing the natural resources. Now with this, if you want to know more about it, it's available at my website. You know, this is the website, the wgbis.ces.iisc.ac.in/energy. In that, I have kept this case report. All these report, what I presented just now, is available at my website. You can download them and you can go through that. Now with this, let me come to the second part of my presentation about the nature. You know, if you understand the mother nature, you can manage the resources. Now, for example, if you look at this gives a simple food chain. The simple food chain also tells us who is producing the food, which is consumed by who all. Now, when you look at carefully, as an engineer, you see that when somebody takes the food, there is an energy and material transfer happen. You know, you can learn the thermodynamic principles. You know, the three laws of thermodynamic principle you can understand from this, from the energy and material transfer. And also, when there is a transfer of energy and material from one level to other level, there is also loss of energy in the form of respiration, etc. That means law of entropy also you can understand by understanding this, the food chain. Then finally, whatever is left in the system gets converted into elemental form by bacteria and fungi. That's where when you look at the nature, there is nothing called waste in the nature. Where do you see the waste? You will see waste where waste people are there. Who are these waste fellows? The people who depend too much on synthetic materials, they are the waste fellows. Because of them, there is a burden on the mother nature. So that's where we have to be careful, and if you practice, follow the nature principle, probably you will be less burdened to the nature. That's what we are supposed to do. Okay. Now let us move to the Western Ghats. That is one of the area we have been working extensively. When you look at the Mother Earth, you know, we all know that we have only one Earth. Whether you are in China or in Pakistan or in India, we have only one Earth. We belong to one Earth. Now, if you want to see how many species are there on the Earth, the diversity of plants and animals, our strictest talks about 8 to 12 million species. In the science, we have estimated about 1.3 million species. You know, when we talk about species, it means the varieties. Why do you want the varieties of plants and animals? Because of the varieties of plants and animals, you have variety of food and medicine. Because of that, you will be immune to the diseases and you will be the healthy in the system. Okay. Now, which part of the globe has the higher the diversity of plants and animals? If you want to understand that, let us see how the species diversity ranges across the latitudinal gradient. For information, the Western Ghats extend from 8 degree latitude to 22 degree latitude. When you look at the species occurrence along the latitudinal gradient, you will see at 8 to 14 degree latitude, you have the highest number of plants and animal species and microorganisms. That means 8 to 14 degree corresponds to Kerala and Karnataka and Tamil Nadu part of Western Ghats. That means we have inherited the rich diversity of plants and animals, it is our responsibility to pass on this diversity of plants and animals to our next generation, so that we can maintain the intergeneration equity, so that there is no the problem for scarcity of the resources. Now, using big data, you can find out what changes are happening in the system. We have used the remote sensing data for the period 1985 to 2018. It gives an idea about when you use the algorithms like artificial intelligence or machine learning, you can speed up the process. See, earlier, my seniors used to analyze one district, they used to take 2 years. But today, within 6 months, my students have analyzed the entire Western Ghats for the 4 time period. Dr. Bharat has worked on this aspect, and also we looked at the fragmentation of the forest, how the forests are getting fragmented. It also shows that fragments, not only the forests we are losing, it is also getting degraded or fragmented. Okay. Now let us look at what is the carbon that is stored in the forest. As you all know, during photosynthesis, plants synthesize carbon in the atmosphere, convert it into oxygen, and that carbon gets stored in the plants in the form of the trunk or a leaves or a bark. So we quantified what is the carbon that is stored in the forest of the Western Ghats. It shows that the forest of Western Ghats has 1.23 million kilogram of the carbon in the vegetation and soil. And every year it increments about 37,000 gigagram. Gigagram is a ton. Okay, that means this carbon what it sequesters every year is equivalent to the carbon that is emitted by us in places like Trivandrum, Kochi, Bangalore, etc. And in economic terms, if you want to see that what are this one, it amounts to 100 billion rupees. So that means this is about $1.4 billion. You might wonder why we have assessed in economic terms. This is required when you go to the international forum. You need to argue for the international audience about the need for Western Ghats conservation, because this Western Ghats vegetation has sequestered the carbon that is emitted by the developed country. It has stored the carbon, which is about 100 billion rupees, the carbon it has stored. That means that the Western countries have to pay India to conserve the Western Ghats this much money every year, so that we can also have conservation in place. Okay. Now, what is the likely scenario in 2031? We have analyzed, and our land use analysis shows that currently the evergreen forest covers about the 10% of the entire spatial extent. Say, as per the Government of India now, the region should have had 33% green cover. We have violated that. Currently, we have only 10% of the green. And likely implication of this kind of degradation is the changes in temperature. Some part of the Western Ghats become warmer, like Kerala will become warmer, and some part will become cooler. And the more dangerous thing is the changes in rainfall pattern. The Kerala, which is receiving high rainfall earlier, will start receiving the lower rainfall. And other disastrous thing that is likely to happen is the changes in rainy days. As you all know, the monsoon in Karnataka extends over 4 months, while in Kerala it is about 6 to 8 months. Now, instead of the rain spread across the 4 to 8 months, the rain will come in a few days. In a 3 or 4 days, the entire quantum of the rain will be there. That means you will have a high intensity rainfall. Then the landscape will not be able to retain that. With that, you will have the floods. When you have the floods, there will be landslides and mudslides. That means if you want to minimize that, you need to manage the ecosystem. That is where this kind of knowledge will help. And for that, to help the decision making, we develop the decision support system for the result. Now, this gives the spatial variation of the climatic parameters, and this is the decision support system what we have used. And we have the spatial data like land use, forest fragmentation, etc., and also the attribute information. And we have integrated all the associated variables like the biological organism, the flora, fauna, etc., then geoclimatic, then the hydrological parameter, then the energy, social aspect. We integrated all these things, and then we graded the system as the ecologically sensitive region 1, 2, 3, like that. Okay. Now, this is how we are done. See, now we divided the entire Western Ghats into 5 minutes by 5 minutes grid, or a 9 kilometer by 9 kilometer. If the forest cover is greater than 60, we have given the weight of 10. So that's how the weight map is generated. Similarly, for each of the variable, we generated the weight map. So then when you combine all these the biogeoclimatic variables together, and you will get a composite layer which will give what is the kind of the ecosystem sensitiveness. Now this gives the carbon sequestration in the region, and you see that as you move from Kerala to the Gujarat, you will see Kerala and Karnataka part of Western Ghats have the higher faunal diversity which are endemic to the region. Endemic means they are location specific to that region. So is the case of the tree diversity. As you move from Kerala to the Gujarat, you will see Kerala and Karnataka part of Western Ghats have the higher diversity of the tree endemism. Okay. Now based on this data, we have visualized what is where all the eco-sensitive region. One, this is ESR 1. Green is dark green is 2, this is 3, and this is the blue is the 4. Now you know that which part of Western Ghat is ecologically sensitive. Now if you want to visualize that, we have put this decision support system online. When you access this web page, you will come to know this. You can visualize the entire Western Ghats. You can, and if you want to know about a particular state, you can also do the selection. For example, if you are from Karnataka, you can see the Karnataka's the eco-sensitive aspects. Then if you are particularly interested in a particular region in Karnataka, let us say Cool, this gives the Cool, you know that where the eco-sensitive villages 1, 2, 3 and 4 are there. Then if you are interested in Taluk, you can choose the Taluk, okay. And within a Taluk, if you want a particular village, you can do that. When you click on that village, you will get the associated attribute information of the village to say that why that is ecologically sensitive. And also we have put all the data which is required for doing this kind of analysis is available to the public. You know, the carbon, if you want to see, that entire data is available to the public so that they can they visualize the thing and they can understand what is the basis for the considering this as a ecologically sensitive. Now that's how the science helps in the decision making as in providing the decision support system. Okay. Now when we launched this is about 10 days back we launched it. Of course the media carried our the portal details in a big way, and day for yesterday there was a discussion in the parliament also about this Western Ghats. See, that's how the science should reach the destination of the decision making. That's where the technology helps. That's where the professionals, especially the members of IISC, can do this kind of thing because they are technically talented. They should be able to solve this kind of problem that is haunting our country, you know, with the mismanagement. Okay. Now, let us try to understand why did we do this kind of a science. You know, now if you want to see that how the land cover is related to the water availability, if you look at this photograph, it gives you an idea. This is a picture of a region in 1991 at the same location in 2022 when you visit, we didn't have the water. Now this could be because we have lost the vegetation cover in the region. Now to that means one has to maintain the catchment or watershed ecological integrity to sustain the water in the region. That's what it says. Now to understand this better, you know, we can use EIS. You know, this is a river course. This is a Sharavati river basin, originates at Ambutirtha, traverses 128 km, joins the ocean. Now, what did we do? In 1965, we constructed a dam. When we constructed a dam, there has been a changes in the land cover. You see that one part of the river basin has a dense vegetation today. The other part has this kind of degraded landscape that is on this side. Now, if you want to see the changes that has happened because of the climatic variable, because of these changes in the land cover, you look at the rainfall data. Today, you get the rainfall data of last 123 years data. You download the data, you divide that into two time periods, 1901 to 1965 and 1965 to today. When you analyze this, you will be surprised to see this region, this Linganmakki catchment area was receiving the rainfall of 3,000 to 4,500 during 1901 to 1964, that is before constructing a dam and before changes in the land cover. Now with the changes in land cover, you see one part of this dam received the rainfall of 3,000 to 4,500 where the forest is also intact. And the other part where the forest is degraded, you see the rainfall has come down to 1,700 to 1,900 millimeter. Now to understand this better, we also divided this into sub-basin. You see this is a first order stream. Two first order stream join from the second order. They form the cluster called this is a sub-basin for the tributary. Now there are sub-basins on the western side, there are sub-basins on the eastern side. Let us look at the forest cover on the western side and also eastern side and what is the rainfall. When you look at that, on the eastern side, forest cover is 30%, rainfall is 1776. On the western side, contrary to that, forest cover is 65%, rainfall is 4800. Or the forest cover is 60%, rainfall is 4400. Now, the quantum of rainfall clearly shows there is a linkage with the forest cover in the region. That means if there is a forest, we have the rainfall. If there is a rainfall, then we have water at home. Now to find out whether the water is available, whether you get 1700 millimeter or a 4800 millimeter rainfall, whether you have water throughout the year in your wells or in the stream, we carried out the hydrological investigation. We put the sensors in the underlying the strata of the earth to find out how much water get infiltrated in a catchment if it is dominated by the native vegetation species, native forest, or by the urban or by the monoculture plantation. See, when it rains, if the catchment is dominated by native vegetation which are diverse, the roots are also diverse. Because roots are diverse, the soil microorganisms are abundant. When soil microorganisms are abundant, soil becomes the porous or permeable. When soil becomes porous, it allows the water to percolate. It fills this zone, which is a groundwater zone. Then it fills the water zone. Then only you will see a water flowing in the stream or a river during the monsoon. Then what is the advantage of storing water in the underlying layer? Now, after monsoon of 4 months, the next 4 months, the water that is stored in this region moves laterally to the river or stream or a well. That's how you have the water for the next 4 months. Then during summer, the water in this region moves laterally, and that's how you have the water during the summer. That's how 12 months water is available. Now, if the landscape is completely urbanized, nothing goes inside like urbanized. So in that process, what happens? Only during monsoon you will have floods, and during non-monsoon you will not have water in the well. That's what is happening in most of the towns or cities in India or in developed country or developing countries. Now, when you do this kind of investigation for 36 months, we get the seasonal variability. Then depending on that, we have graded the streams as A, B, C, D. A are the stream carry the water for 12 months, B are the one for 8 months, C for the 6 months, and D are the one for 4 months. Now when you look at the catchment, the forest cover, wherever the forests of native species are there, we have water for 12 months. Wherever forests are converted into monoculture plantations, you have either 6 to 8 months. Or when we declare the catchment with the forest cover less than 30%, you have water in the wells only during the monsoon. Now, to see how much water get infiltrated, our study shows that about 55 to 60% of our water get infiltrated in the landscape when they are dominated by forest cover. Wherever forests are degraded, you see that the infiltration is only 10 to 20%. Now let us look at the societal demand. People require the water for irrigation, agriculture, livestock rearing, drinking, etc. We quantified that in this region. You see that wherever the water is available abundantly, demand for water is higher, and it meets the requirement of everybody. And wherever the landscape is degraded, you see demand is there, but there is not sufficient water. So that means if you want to have water at your home, you need to keep the ecosystem in place. Now to summarize what I said so far, this is the region where the 12 months water is available. Green are the 8 month, yellow is the 6 month, and this blue are the 4 month. Now when you overlay the forest cover on that, you see wherever the contiguous intact forests are there, you have water for 12 months. Wherever forests are converted to monoculture plantation or fragmented, depending on the extent of forest fragmentation, you have 8 to 6 months. And depending on the degradation, you have only 4 months of the desert. Now this also get reflected in the livelihood of the people. Farmers in this region, if they earn 1,54,000 rupees per acre per year, farmers in this region, they earn only 32,000 rupees per acre per year. Why 1,54,000 versus 32,000? In this region, farmers can grow multiple crop or a cash crop since the water is available throughout the year. While the farmers in this region can grow only one crop, that's why 32,000 rupees per acre per year. Now another interesting the aspect that has come out of our study is the role of pollinator. Since the forests are intact here, pollinators are abundant. Since pollinators are abundant, pollination become efficient. When pollination become efficient, the yield of the crop is high. That is evident in the case of paddy. Here the paddy yield is as high as 12 to 16 quintal per acre, whereas the paddy yield in this region is 6 to 8 quintal per acre. Now, if you want to double the income of the farmer, I would suggest the Prime Minister of the India, who keeps on talking about doubling the income, he has to just maintain the ecosystem integrity. When he maintains the forest ecosystem, the dependent people will get water for 12 months and the pollinators will give the crop which is twice the yield. So that means they got to double the income. So that's how we have to practice. Okay. Now this also gives where all the animals are there. These dots indicate the various animals. Now you see wherever water is available for 12 months, you will see the animals like tigers, sloth bears, etc. are there. Where water is not there, only two-legged animals you can see in this region. Now if you want to understand the importance of biodiversity on our health, these two fish will give you an idea about that. These are the two species of fish which we have described as the Schistura nagodiensis or Schistura sherawatiensis. They have the medicinal property. It can be used for curing the respiratory diseases. Now, thinking their medicinal properties, I thought that if we culture it in our Bangalore lab, we can also become a billionaire. But unfortunately, this fish didn't give the medicinal property in the Bangalore lab, which means that if the fish has to give the medicine, it has to be grown in its habitat. For the fish to grow in its habitat of a stream, the stream should have water 12 months. For the stream to have the 12 months water, this catchment area, the watershed area, should have the biodiversity of plants or the diverse plant. That means this fish tells us if you maintain the forest, the diversity, it will give the medicine to us. Now, as you all know, the warming of the earth is happening. With the warming of the earth, the changes in climate is happening. Now, with the changes in climate, one thing is certain to happen is we will not have water on the earth. When we don't have water on the earth, I don't think any humans can survive. However intelligent he or she is with artificial intelligence and machine learning, etc. But still, he has to go in front of the mother nature. Now, how the other organism can survive in this? Let us learn from the example of a frog. See, for example, frogs are known as the amphibian because they have two stages in the life cycle. First stage is the juvenile stage or the tadpole stage, which is in the water. Next stage is adult stage, which is on the land. Now, because of the two stages and different kinds of habitat requirement, we call them as frogs as amphibians. Now, if there is no water, what will happen when the reproduction is happening? If there is no water, what will happen to the frog? The tadpole cannot survive. But in this case, in this particular species, we notice that after fertilization, the egg, we saw the younger ones are emerging out in 14 days. That means this organism has learned, in case of scarcity of water, how to have the direct development and bypass the tadpole stage or dependence on water. So now, for all of us, water is required, but we will not survive. All these organisms will survive. That's what we learned from this study. Okay. Now, understanding the importance of the ecosystem and availability of water wherever the ecosystems are there, the people have protected the forest and they have called that as a sacred forest or the sacred groves, which you can see in Karnataka and Kerala and Maharashtra, the Goa part of the Western Ghats. You know, if you look at Lord Shiva, his head symbolizes the earth with the forest cover. Because of that, the forest cover, he could retain the water which we call it as Ganga. But unfortunately, in the name of development, people from Bangalore or Mumbai go to this forest. They are converting the forest into the idle land, and that is where idle land becomes the mad fellow's land, and eventually we lose the forest and that we lose the water also. Okay. Now, how one should do the planning? Let us try to understand from this. See, for example, if you manage the sustainability, then you will also make sure the resources are available to the next generation. That we can learn from these elderly ladies. You know, these ladies, they get under the water to collect a bucket full of bivalves. they collect one bucket of biogas every day. When they collect that, they earn 350 rupees every day, which is sufficient for them to maintain their family. They do not collect the second bucket on that day. That means they have maintained the sustainability of resources by not over harvesting. Second thing you have to keep in mind is when you do the developmental project, you should not deprive the local people their right to live. For example, when we connected Kerala with Mumbai, we made sure that farmers and the fishermen continue to get their fish and paddy, etc. That's how the development should happen in our country. Okay. Now, if you don't get that, then you will pay the heavy price. The people thought that land is available. They went on expanding the land, as in the case of Ether Island. Then finally, people have to abandon the land because there was no water. Similar thing happened in the last leg of Vijayanagara kingdom in our country. If you look at the history book, last leg of Vijayanagara kingdom failed because of the water crisis, which means you might make Bangalore, the Bruhat Bangalore with all Bruhaspatis in that, but they will not have the water. Finally, Bruhaspatis have to leave Bangalore. That's what is going to happen in our country. Okay. Now let us try to look at Bangalore, how it is changing with time. In 1800, the Bangalore of 714 square kilometer area had 1452 water bodies. If you look at the landscape, there are three broad watersheds. Taking advantage of the undulating terrain, people have constructed the interconnected lake system. Because the river was passing, they just put the pond, and that's how we had the lake system in this one. And we had 82% green cover at that time in 1800 when during Kempegoda period. Now today, you see that the green cover is less than 8%, and number of water bodies has come down to 193. The temperature in the city during 1800, during the May month, the peak summer was 14 to 16 degrees Celsius. Today it's 34 to 37 degrees Celsius. And also for a few days in December, the temperature in the city was 0 degrees Celsius, and we were growing apples in a place called Palace Orchard closer to IISC. But today, what are we growing with increased temperature? The waste and waste people in the region. So that's how the city, which was a garden city, became a garbage city, and today it's become a dead city. Now let's look at the landscape of the Bangalore with the interconnected lake system. Okay. Similarly, entire Karnataka we had large number of water bodies, 39,000, the decentralized water harvesting structures, which was maintaining the requirement of the water for the people at the locality. When you look at the functions of the wetland, as I talked about Karnataka, they also provide fish, sand, salt, etc. They also do the groundwater recharge. If you want to understand that groundwater recharge, see, our study shows when lakes were there, people were getting the water at 80 to 100 feet in their wells near to the lake. And after removing the lake in 5 years, it went down to 600 feet. Today, in a place like Nakshatihalli, after 22 years, people have gone down to 1900 feet in search of water. They have not got water at 1900 feet. Now they are looking up at the moon for water. That is the tragedy we are facing now for the water in the city. Now let us also try to understand what is the worth of the lake if it is not polluted. For example, Rachanan Lake provides the fish, fodder, etc. to an extent of 10,500 rupees per day per hectare. The people like fishermen, farmers, washermen, they are benefited from the lake. Now, when the lake is polluted, the worth comes down to 20 rupees per day per hectare. That means this section of the society get polluted because of people like us who sit in the other part of the city, we pollute the system. Okay. Now let us try to understand what are the threats to the Bangalore lakes. One is unplanned urbanization. Again, we have made use of the big data, the spatial data which we get from a remote sensing sensor for the period 1973 to 2019. See, 1973, 68% of the landscape is green with vegetation, blue is water body, yellow is the open spaces, and red is the building. Then 92, you see that with industries coming at Pini and Koramangala, the changes are happening in that region. The buildings started coming up. Then 2000, with ITPT sectors, the outskirts, we see the changes happening in the region. 2006, further intensification. 2009, further intensification. Now 2021, it is 85% of the landscape is the choked with the concrete. And 2022, it is again another 2% gets added. That means there has been a 1055% increase in a concrete area during the period 1973 to 2019 with a loss of 88% green cover and 79% of the water body. And if this trend continues, 98% of the Bangalore would be concretized by 2025. Already we have reached the situation that we use oxygen cylinder. Some of the elders in the city have to use oxygen cylinder. That means the city is starving for oxygen because of less number of trees. The vegetation cover is less than 3%, and there is acute shortage of water in the city. That's where the city is dying. So we need to decongest Bangalore. Okay. Now, if you look at the emission, see, now whether the city is livable, you can make out. For example, if you look at this, we have done the study across the 10 cities in the country. The cities we didn't have the proper public transport have the higher emission. For example, Hyderabad, the emission from transport sector is as high as 54%, whereas Bangalore it is as high as 45%. Now, if you look at the Bangalore and other cities also, the waste is also contributing. Because are not processing the waste, solid or liquid waste is also contributing to the greenhouse footprint. And also our architecture, which is a classic example of copy paste. As an engineers, you will all appreciate how the people of the current generation are using the copy paste for everything. This copy paste, the culture is even in the building architecture is evident. This architecture is supposed to be for temperate climate or a cold climate where you have to trap the heat to feel comfortable inside. But unfortunately, this architecture was copied from European climate and they are pasted in the tropical climate like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, etc. Now the implication of that we try to understand by the sample study of about 3,000 households. Our study shows in the normal building, the electricity consumption per person per year ranges from 700 units, 750 units per person per year to the 1,700 the units per person per year. Whereas in the glass facade building, it goes up to 14,000 to 17,000 units or kilowatt per person per year. That means copy paste culture has contributed to 10 times higher electricity consumption or 10 times higher wastage of the electricity. Higher the electricity consumption means higher is the carbon footprint. That means unplanned urbanization with the loss of ecosystem, with the enhanced pollution is contributing more to the global warming. Okay. Now let us look at the number of water bodies we have lost. This red indicates where all we have lost the water body in Bangalore. Okay. And the implication of loss of vegetation and if you want to see the temperature in the city which was 21 degrees in 92 became 24 degrees in 2000 or 28 degrees in the 2006 and today is about 38 degrees. To understand this better, we moved in 8 direction. We noted down the temperature profile. You see wherever lakes are there, temperature is 2 degrees lower. Similar is the case in the parks and green cover region. Even my campus, IISC has a temperature lower. That is because of the green cover that is prevailing in the campus. Okay. Now, the implication of this management, we have the floods happening in the city very often since 2001, and also at the same time we also have the drought. When you see the drought and flood happening, it clearly shows that we have mismanaged the natural resources. Okay. Why the flooding is happening? Because the connectivity among the lake is lost. See, earlier this was the lake which was connecting this lake with the lake. Now in the name of urbanization, we just removed that lake and converted it into the Golf Coast, and in the process that region become vulnerable to the flood. Now when you use the remote sensing data, you see that where all the disconnectivity is lost. All the influential section of the city are sitting on the drains. They are contributing to the flood. If you want to address the flood problem in the city, you need to evict them. Okay. Now, other way we are managing the lake, if you want to see, the lake is getting polluted because of dumping of solid waste, and also people encroach the lake, or the liquid waste is being dumped into the lake. When the waste is getting into the water body, eutrophication happens, which is evident in the form of profuse growth of macrophytes and algae. And also it was evident in the form of the frothing and fire in the lake. Now the solution for frothing would have been better if you have addressed the contaminant at the source. But unfortunately, bureaucracy in the city, they adopted an indirect strategy. Since the froth was coming to the road, to arrest the froth coming to the road, they constructed the barricade. Now constructing a barricade, I solved the problem only for 4 days. So I had written an article criticizing that, saying that on the 5th day the froth will come to the street. As I predicted, it happened. Similar is the case if you look at with the profuse growth of macrophyte, algal population comes down in the lake. Because of that, there won't be the zooplankton population comes down and the fish. That means the worth of the lake comes down from 10,500 rupees per day per hectare to 20 rupees per day per hectare. Okay, and when we use this contaminated water for growing vegetables, and also the fish in the lake is also we analyzed, we collected a fish from the lake and also vegetable that is grown in the vicinity. We saw the heavy metal in all the food items. Every unit of pollutant, the heavy metal getting it get magnified in the fish to the million times. The heavy metal getting into the food chain is a quite serious issue. That's where there are higher incidences of kidney failure and cancer in the city. Kidney failure, which was 1 in 1 lakh about 12 years back, today is 1 in 5,000. We are not sure who is next going to lose the kidney in the city. Already there are many people who have lost the brain in the city, but that's where we are dependent too much on AI. Okay. Now we also looked at the how to rejuvenate the lake. That is where the science can contribute. We analyzed how much. If you are talking about rejuvenation of the lake, you need to do the desilting. We quantified what is the silt that is accumulated in the lake. We found that about 11 million cubic meter of the silt is accumulated in the city. Since my report was taken to the Supreme Court penalized the government of Karnataka for 500 crore. Now with that 500 crore, we are rejuvenating the lake. I am in the committee. Now I analyzed the silt that is accumulated in the Vartur lake. It does not have any contaminant because the Belandur Lake acts as a wetland. It traps all the contaminant. So when we gave this the silt to the farmers, the farmers got the bumper crop. That also gives an idea that how the silt in the lake could be used beneficially for growing the crop. We had given this silt to the 400 acres for fertilizing 400 acres. After 4 months, when I visited the farmer's house, I had a royal treatment with this kind of the vegetables, etc. They just loaded my vehicle with this vegetable, etc. And when I talked to them, each farmer said they got additional revenue of 1,50,000 per acre. That is because not using fertilizer. And since the soil is rich in fertilizer, they had a bumper crop also. In a year, they grow this vegetable price. You can imagine with a simple measure, they are getting about 4.5 lakh per acre in a year. Okay. Now, what are the other things we have done in the thing? I will be winding up in another 5 minutes. One is our technology has helped in treating the wastewater in a cost-effective way. Rainwater harvesting is another thing to solve the problem, and creating the water body, and also mini forest in each ward will solve the problem of the groundwater. And sensitizing the youth is another important thing we are doing. When youth are sensitized with the environmental knowledge, their sensible youth will become responsible. That is what the country is required. The responsible youth will be an asset to the nation. That's what we are looking for. Now, for example, if you look at the technology, how it is working, let me take you to the Jakkur Lake. Way back in 2005, when I studied Jakkur Lake and surrounding, there were 25 wells were there. All of them had nitrate. Nitrate is a carcinogen which introduces cancer. Nitrate are got into the groundwater because we are letting untreated sewage into the lake. Then we pushed the government to have the rejuvenation of the lake. At that time, the government said they can put only the secondary treatment plant. As you all know, secondary treatment plant will remove only the large particles and the chemical ion. It won't remove the nutrient. But sewage has the nutrient like N and P. Now to remove that nutrient, I integrated constructed wetland and algal pond. Since I was in the committee, I could do that. And when I did that, see, for the last 10 years, my students have monitored this lake. And this report is available online based on our study, the monitoring report, okay? And it showed that 85 to 90% of the nutrient is removed. Today there are 300 wells surrounding this Jakkur Lake. None of them have nitrate, nor the Jakkur Lake. I have the satisfaction of giving a clean water at least to the 300 well users in the Jakkur Lake. This is the model I am saying the government to replicate in all the wards in the city where our lakes are there. So now, when you look at the city receives about 700 to 800 millimeter rainfall. If you harvest it, you have 15 TMC of water. The city requires about 18 TMC of water. That means 70% of the water required can be, you can achieve it through the rainwater harvesting. There are two ways of rainwater harvesting. One, through the root harvesting. Each house will have 3 to 4 months of additional water. And another more effective way is through the lakes. Okay, and if you are using 18 TMC of water, you are also generating 18 TMC of wastewater. If you treat it similar to Jakkur model, you have 16 TMC of water. So that means 15 plus 16 TMC, you will have 31 TMC of water in a place where the demand is 18 TMC. For this to happen, I have 5R formula. First R is a responsible citizen. When people are responsible, they will rejuvenate the lake so that I can retain the rainwater, and also we can treat the wastewater also. But irresponsible citizens will think only of the Mekedatu and such unscientific project, which will involve the losing 5,000 hectares of the forest, which has a hydrological value of storing 100 TMC of water. See, the forests are doing a good service of storing 100 TMC of rainwater. We want to remove that and store 65 TMC of water in a concrete dam. That's an unfortunate thing that will continue as long as the people are irresponsible. Okay. Now, if you come to my campus, I have a lake which I created in 2008. This is used by my student for the biofuel study. Not only students are happy, I also have otter in the campus. Now the otter means it requires a lot of fish. Nature provides the fish. When we did the documentation of the biodiversity in the lake, we saw the enough number of algae, zooplankton and fish in the lake. So the similar model, see here the message is when we create a water body, it stores 10 lakh liters of water. I stay on the campus, I use 500 liters of water for my family. That means per year I use about 1 to 1.25 lakh liters of water. But what I am doing is 10 times that I am giving it back. So if every citizen give back 10 times the water or the natural reserve what they consume, then there won't be poverty in the system. The similar thing we did in Mudvidre. This saint was worried about not drought situation in Mudvidre in 2014 and 15. 2016 when he met me, he said he has 12 acres of land. Then we did a study to find out what is the lowest point in the 12 acres and how much water he can store. And when we gave a proposal to him, within 15 days, he made sure the water body is in place. The success is because of the youth. The Alva Science and Engineering College students and the saint is also quite young, and CEO of Alva is also quite young. So because of the youth, we see our plan materialize. Then seeing a success here, I also convinced the Alva CEO to have a water body in his campus, so which stores 25 lakh liters of water. Now, when I visited this in 2018 as a guest faculty at that institution, I see a greenery with abundant water, and there's a smile on our face also. The message here for the youngsters are, see this water body when it was created. Before that, this gentleman was a bachelor. Then after creating the water body in a Facebook, all faceless fellows will do. After that, in a 6 months, they will start thinking of divorce and filing papers for that. See, if you want happy life, you need to contribute something to the nature. So when the society is benefited, you will get the rewards like that. There will be happiness at home and happiness at family and in the locality. Okay. So now if you come to campus, you will see this climber in the campus. This is a Western Ghat climber. So I was fascinated by this architecture when I was a student. I brought it, I felt that I should have it in Bangalore, that in my campus. I brought the seeds to the campus. There were 14 seeds in that pot. When I planted this, out of 14, 7 I kept in my lab. Other 7 I planted in 7 locations. 7 locations planted by me. Out of that 7, only 1 survived. Where it survived? Next to the building where I worked for 2 decades. That means even the plants know who will take care. Otherwise, why other 6 places it didn't survive, though it is planted by me in the same environment? You need to understand that. Okay. In front of this building, we created a mini forest. In a 2 hectares area, this is in between the Earth Sciences and the CMOS, this mini forest, which has the 49 native species. In a 2 hectares area, about 5 sapling were planted way back in 90s. That region was dominated by Parthenium. Today, if you go and search for Parthenium, you won't get it. More importantly, groundwater, which was 150 feet earlier, today you get a water at 10 feet. And the other thing is temperature in the region is 2 degrees lower. That shows that there is a linkage between the nature with the temperature in the region. And more importantly, you will get this kind of the biodiversity, slender loris and varieties of snakes in the region. So that's how we get the benefit. So then we also convey the message to the youngsters through the environment education program. We also have a capacity building program. The course on environmental management, we have 120 sessions as of now. 21st session I have announced. The last date for applying is, details are available at the IISC website, is the 22nd of this month. Those who are interested can take this. The graduates and postgraduate and PhD scholars and working professionals can attend this, so can register for the course. That's how we are doing the capacity building at the school level as well as the professional level. We are hoping to sensitize the entire country so that everyone becomes environmentally literate. When environmentally literate country is there, there will be prosperity. To convey the message, we organize a symposium once in 2 years, popularly known as Lake Symposium. This is the 13th event, which I started way back in '98. Uniqueness of the event is not only the decision maker take part, even the students from schools and colleges take part. When children take part, they do a simple experiment like carbon sequestration or catchment mapping or water quality assessment. You can see the children are trained by my student. Children go and collect the sample, then they come with the research paper, they will present it. When they present in a forum like this, the capacity building happens. When they attend the event with the international national delegate, naturally their confidence level, knowledge level goes up. That's how we are doing capacity level at all levels. Okay, if you are interested, you will see the YouTube lectures in YouTube. You can do the Google search, YouTube, TVRAMACHANDRA. You can also write to me. My email ID is tvr@iisc.ac.in. These are my portal. When you access the portal at IISC, you will see the research paper section. All my publications are put there. So, and also you will get on the public domain like ResearchGate and Google Scholar also. And this gives a glimpse of the water testing lab, what we have created in various the institution. We didn't have the water chemistry labs. Okay, so now the work what we did way back in 2010, on solar energy, the country's solar program was formulated. So now my students are working on biofuels. When I look at the country landscape, 65% are youth, and we have abundant solar energy. Biofuel, the solar energy which we can convert into heat energy and electric energy, while the biofuel will give the liquid fuel. So that means harvesting all these three in a sensible way, we can make the country, the developed country, with a sensible people. That's what we are looking for. If you need more detail, these are the portal, you get it. And the success of our research, the credit should go to the youth. When they do a good work, there is happiness in everybody's